Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to a very, very special episode of Media Matters. Today I'm honoured to be joined by two of the best in the business. Firstly, we have a familiar voice to AI Pro that we haven't had for the last year or so. I'm glad to have Sunday Times football correspondent Jonathan Northcroft back. Welcome back, Jonathan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, and thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure. I'm well. I'm just enjoying the season finally being over, I have to say, because after the club season, I then had a couple of weeks of England, and that just about did me in. So, time for a break.
Yeah, I think I was tired at the end. I think we just had a quick chat pre the podcast. Every game was a final for, I think, the last 20 odd games for Liverpool, and it was stressed. They did brilliant, to be honest, to get to where they did, but brilliant. But anyway, we have another amazing guest. Last but no means least, this returning guest, it's been a few good years actually since we last spoke to him. He always delivers the big interview, and it's our turn to interview him, Mr. La Liga himself, the great man, Graham Hunter. Graham, welcome back to the show. So good to have you back on.
GT, I hate to be sort of picky and argue right at the start, but I think you're an amazing guest. Amazed that you've had me back on. I'm glad to be here. And also, I'm amazed that I didn't go two-footed into your main opening there about England and how awful they were.
No problems with that at all. Go for it.
Not to slag them off, but there's really clear solutions that are absolutely sticking out every time you watch them play, and I avoided the temptation to go in two-footed there. So, count yourselves lucky.
If we get time, there was an article from Mr. Northcroft that we might cover at the end. And there was something about Trent, which will lead on from the person that we're here to talk about. And, for those that don't know, and all you listeners that don't know, both of the guests we have are both Aberdeen supporters. And Liverpool have just bought a player from Aberdeen for the first time since 1965. So Mr. Calvin Ramsay, well, young boy. Master Calvin Ramsay, such a kid. So firstly, I do see a lot of people spelling his name wrong. It's Ramsay with an A, folks, not Aaron Ramsey. It's Calvin Ramsay. So yes, spell it right, please. Let's get your thoughts on the deal first, gents. 4 million, 2.5 million in add-ons. Jonathan, your thoughts first?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of those rare deals that's a bit of a win-win, actually. It's a great price for Aberdeen, in all honesty. Gone are the days where we could keep our best talents, and we're in another phase where we need to rebuild under a newish manager. So it's a great price, but it could actually prove a great price for Liverpool in the long run, because this kid, and we're going to talk about him, does have real elite potential. And he's not a £6.5 million player yet, but he could be treble, quadruple, much more than that in the years to come. And I'm glad, just from I guess from a point of view, that he's going somewhere, as an Aberdeen boy, that I've got a chance to see him develop. He'll have a great chance of developing his career at Liverpool. So I'm quite sanguine, quite happy about the deal, in all honesty.
Hey, great. Let's see if we get the same view from him. I'm not sure if we will be.
No fucking chances. You both well know.
Come on,
Johnny. No. This isn't like hold the back message or anything like that. This is it's an honest point of view. Johnny's like words there are all spot on the money, but I'm pissed off, guys. I'm pissed off because this might be a Liverpool discussion that we're having, but it's rare for Aberdeen to breed recently a guy who can come into the first team aged 18, first team squad at 17, do so well in a fractured team, a team that performed pretty horribly across the season, where he's playing for two different managers, and senior pros all around him are failing, and towards the latter part of the season, giving up, and stand out to the extent that Scottish football writers give him Young Player of the Year, when the Ugly Sisters tend to win those prizes repeatedly. And then if you think about for how long Liverpool have had their eyes on this fella, he's gone on to meet, and this is where it really pisses me off, he's gone on to meet their expectations, in that it's months and months and months that they've been reckoning on, do we do this deal? At what time do we do this
How
deal?
long do you know that was? Do you know the time frame? Was that January
Yeah,
onwards, is it?
No. It's steady on. No. They've been looking at Ramsay from before the beginning of this season. It isn't just instant.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but hold on. Johnny's phrase about he's got the potential for elite performance is right. There are elite things about him, for his age right now. But from you could have asked anybody on, but you asked two Aberdeen fans who like to talk about football on. Therefore, from my point of view, if I'm being honest here, I'm really pissed off that we've lost him. It's undoubtedly been a well-constructed deal. It's undoubtedly the case that Aberdeen have fought pretty tigerishly to construct something that compensates them for losing a talent. I mean, this is a boy, it's easier for your club, guys, but this is a boy who wanted to play for the badge, who loved the club. He's a guy who would have been, in the beach end or in the paddock if he hadn't been a player. And to lose that after one fractured season, irrespective of the fact that Johnny's nailed it. He's gone to a club that will develop him. He's gone to a club where, pressure for him to develop as an individual, as a footballer, to develop in the gym, all that pressure is going to be on him really high. It's not like he hasn't moved into some sort of paradise where it'll be all three of us will have spoken to, particularly, both Andy Robertson and Trent about the development they had to do under Klopp. Andy, just to make the leap from where he'd been at Hull, Trent to move from on the field. So that's all in store for Calvin. It isn't going to be like a cakewalk. But to lose him, guys, if I start this discussion by not admitting that I'm absolutely pig sick, then I'd be lying.
And you know what? We love the transparency, and then the opposing view as well in terms of that. I mean, I'm suppose Jonathan's not happy to be honest as well, but
No, maybe no. I mean, listen, I'm listening to Graham there, and maybe I'm a bit jaded about Aberdeen. If I'm being honest, I was really disillusioned by last season. I was one of those that felt we needed a change of manager, and when Derek McInnes finally went, looked forward to something better and something new, and it's just been horrendous since then. We had a really, as Graham said, a really awful season. Even ended up fighting relegation from a position of relative safety coming into the winter. So I just feel quite jaded about it, and I suppose realistic that we can't hold on to talents like that. But yeah, maybe I should be a bit more pissed off like Graham. I don't know. It's just making me reflect that I'm a bit ground down by how bad we've been. But he is, as Graham said, a proper Aberdeen boy. That's one thing. I think it's the Markland Road end that he used to go to, actually, Graham, not the beach end. But he is one of us. He is one of us. And I guess my thing is I just want to see him do well on that level. And if the best Aberdeen can do now, I think, is be a development club, produce great players, have good seasons. But we're not there at the moment. We're a long way away, so we need to rebuild. And if he goes and carries the torch in the Premier League for us, I'll actually be quite happy.
Does he allow you guys to rebuild with the 6.5 million, or there was a 4 million guarantee? Does that allow Aberdeen to rebuild at all, or is it not enough in this day and age? Just because nowadays it's crazy in terms of fee wise. What does it do for Aberdeen, that fee? Graham, let's go to you.
Well, first of all, it allows us. You want to be a little bit selfish. It allows us the potential to watch the development, and if he does well and wins trophies, potentially earn a little bit more, which at the moment is extremely important for us, because not above and beyond, but as well as creating a new team to win trophies, we have to spend £80 million on developing a new stadium, which is a debate that's not completely, new to either Liverpool or, sorry, I mentioned Everton. Short term, we've already signed Jayden Richardson. Now, I don't think that money directly goes to him. But signing Jayden Richardson right back from Nottingham Forest does imply a certain wage outlay, does imply guarantees or promises to him and his agent about what's going to be happening over the coming months and years at Pataudry, because he signed a deal, a permanent deal. It's not a loan. And we've got a thin squad. Two, we're trying to sign a Norwegian striker from the club Odd, Tobias. I'm not going to get his second name, but that's just from lack of memory because I'm old and stupid. But it genuinely is Gags going to be. We're a club, and I guess you'll want to turn the page to Liverpool soon. But we're a club which, during the pandemic, didn't lay anybody off. Didn't lay any staff off. We're a club that I think made a couple of 100,000 between phone calls and deliveries to vulnerable people across not quite a 2-year period, but across an 18-month period. There was from the community trust and from the club and from just about every member of staff at the orders of the chairman, there was an enormous, and I never stay in conversation, somebody's reached out to me, because only pricks you that expression, but an enormous reach out idea that our community, we're a one club city. There's one big club really in our region, because Dundee doesn't count. We decided that we wanted to keep everybody on board. We spent an extra 7-figure sum on maintaining the status quo while there wasn't any football. So Johnny's point about sales, and it's a brutal phrase, that selling club. I hope that's not what we become, but it is patently clear that if we get an exceptional youth product and he shines for 2 maximum 3 seasons, then for a long time there's going to be a need to cash in well on that, and there's going to be a need that, for example, there's a guy called Lewis Ferguson playing in our midfield. We signed him at a relatively good cost. There have been offers to exceed that. McKenna's just come up from the Championship to top division with Nottingham Forest, and we made money on that deal, both in terms of the profit we sold them at and the add-ons, etc., etc., etc. So, guys, we need to compensate a little bit for the outlay that was used over the pandemic. Secondly, we need to rebuild the squad, because it's a thin squad and it's thin on quality too. It's thin on hard, competitive, aggressive footballers. Quality, yeah. And then finally, gradually, the squad needs to be self-sustaining and attractive to bring sponsors, to bring support, so we can build an £80 million stadium down by the beach.
Amazing to hear the insight, actually, and I think it's good for fans to hear what's going on the other side, where the transfer is happening and what the needs are, and the importance of what it means to the other clubs. So fair play to you, and fair play to Aberdeen for what they did over the lockdown period as well. That's wonderful, especially with the financial climate in Scotland with the Premier League and stuff. It's not at the same level as what the English Premier League's did, and some clubs didn't even do much, I don't think, in the Premier League, to be honest. So let's move on to Calvin then himself. I've watched his interviews and stuff. He's a very, very confident lad. Let's put it that way. He thinks he can play anywhere. But let's talk about what you guys think his main strengths are, and what obviously Aberdeen going to miss, but what we'll get to see this season. I think the main thing I want to say is that there was a need for Trent to get a lot more rest. This season's going to be brutal, very, very brutal. The first, I think there's 8 games more in the period from August to November 12th than there was last year. So 8 games to fit into that, what is it, a relative 12-week period. That's a lot of games to add. So, the cup games maybe, or there might be some, other Premier League games after Champions League games or before that Calvin could play. So what do you think his strengths are, Jonathan?
Well, he is the Trent template very much. At the moment, his greatest skills are definitely creative. He's got a lovely toolbox with his right foot. He's got the floated cross. He's got the driven cross. He can whip it in. but I'm sure Liverpool fans have been looking at that goal he scored against Dundee, which was his first for the club. But when he cut in and sort of drove the ball home from 18 yards with his left foot. I mean, Trent's never scored with his left foot, and that's not untypical. He does cut inside, so he can be sort of 2-footed, a bit like Trent. Then he's got a range of creative elements that he can do. He's got decent physique for such a young lad. It's funny, he even runs with his socks down a little bit, Trent style. Lovely first touch, and one thing he'll really enjoy playing in England is on the far better pitches, because he's been exhibiting beautiful close control and touch on pitches that aren't anywhere near Premier League standards, so he'll benefit from that. And this might sound familiar, is sort of deficiencies of probably defending, probably one-on-one defending, and sometimes positioning. But this is a lad that came through as a midfielder, is a footballer. The way he plays is very much as a footballer who happens to be a right back. He's got enormous scope to develop all sides of his game, but what he's already got is just, as I say, such a kind of palette for Klopp to work with. And he will go, when he does play those games and give Trent a break, he'll actually go into a team that is used to playing with a creative right back, but also used to doing things to allow that right back not to be exposed defensively, which will, I think, take pressure off him and benefit him. So yeah, real top potential here, real sort of top potential, but a long way to go.
Sounds encouraging. I think you are doing a lot of defenders aren't very good one-on-one, to be honest, especially against tricky players. It's very rare to find a very high, they're the best of the ones that can handle one-on-one. So I think Trent gets labelled that a lot without any cover. But and even Calvin, if that does happen to him, we won't be. We've got loads of patience at Liverpool with players like that. So, Graham, what about yourself? How do you react to what Jonathan said there? And is there anything else that he's missed really in terms of his repertoire?
No, look, I'm very cheery about what to say here, because Scottish standards are different right now. It's patently clear that across the board we're developing players to a better standard. It's patently clear that both in the Championship and in the Premier League, more regularly now, Scots are back to being useful, if not essential parts of. So he comes from that context. He comes from that generation where he's been developed differently. His skill set, as Johnny described, that there's no point in trying to exceed those descriptions. He's very raw. What I would say now is I adore him. I loved watching him. Honestly, one of my reasons for starting off saying how pissed off I was is that I think he could have benefited from being bought and loaned back for a year, in my opinion. I think that there was because the argument about when is there a decline in the rate of return about a Premier League player developing in Scotland. Well, actually, we saw that with Ward from Liverpool and Maddison, that there is development potential. And I think that Liverpool have said, we'll bet against that. We'll bet that he's going to be ready quickly. Another thing that's really key about this is that who's at Everton from Rangers? Is it Nathan Patterson?
Yeah.
When someone's going from Rangers to Everton, Liverpool wanted Patterson, who's got similarities to Calvin, let's just say. And they wanted Rangers to wait. Rangers needed the money, did the deal quickly. And the idea, in general, both with the interest from Liverpool and Nathan Patterson and now in Calvin, is that at some stage they find the right man to allow Trent to move back into midfield. So you've both talked about rest, and I fully accept that if you look at what Liverpool put themselves through particularly when they shook themselves up in late November to the dying whistle of the season, it was genuinely extraordinary. And therefore, Calvin's part of an idea that the reason I'm tentative is that I think he's a better footballer than Tony Gallagher, but Tony Gallagher went down from Falkirk to Liverpool. If you look at his under-23 record, there were games, one sticks out against Chelsea, Joe Edwards, Chelsea with Reece in the team, and Hudson-Odoi in the team, and I don't know who all else. There was 3 or 4. And a Liverpool side with a lot of Liverpool players who haven't gone on to try to pump them 5-1, and Tony Gallagher was part of that. And in the end, it didn't work out for him. He went across the Atlantic. He went back to St Johnstone. However, I watched a couple of seasons ago when I was interviewing Van Dijk in Evian during the training camp, and we went into Geneva to see a friend against Lyon. And however, to my view, stood out in a way that he had something that Calvin's got, in that Calvin is, I don't want to over-egg him at all, but I don't know, Johnny, if you're the same. There used to be a tendency amongst older football scouts when you talk to them, they would say, maybe particularly Scots, you can't run. I said, what the fuck's that supposed to mean? Yeah. And that maybe the way we do it now with maybe more study, more articulacy amongst ourselves anyway, is that he's a really balanced athlete. So nobody needs to make him out to be a new Michael Johnson or anything like that. But there is a real balanced athleticism about him. I think he's a natural mover, a natural runner. And I think that if you're that, certainly one, it's more attractive to the eye. You don't get league points or trophies for that. But it also allows you to do one of the things that Johnny was talking about was his distribution. And one of the things that I think stands out is that set play distribution is something that you can really work on. Distribution when you're on the run is probably the hardest skill, and Calvin's got that, and it's partly to do with the fact that he's a very balanced athlete. But to my view, and I spoke to Liverpool about this when I watched on the Hoivers now. Well, he went to Wolves. I haven't followed his career. He looked a really balanced, fluid sort of Rolls Royce player, and yet they didn't have time to develop him. So I've got my not worries or fears, Gags, but I want to outline that I think Johnny's point was about development. Calvin has got heaps and heaps to learn. And I don't just mean about Liverpool or what Jurgen Klopp likes in terms of when to go, when not to go, not even in terms of getting to the state where he can allow, your point was Trent Alexander to rest. At Aberdeen, he exhibited a huge tendency to play like he was a wing back or a right midfielder when he was a right back in a 4. And that led to him being badly positioned regularly. And to my mind, it's funny to be having this conversation because throughout the season, I've had to speak to a lot of people who are like, he's overrated. I'm like, bullshit, he's overrated. Fuck off. The thing you learn to do is to appreciate the things that emerging players do well, and then find out whether the things that they don't do well can be, whether they're endemic, whether they're just built in, inherent, or whether you can train them out. And positioning and timing of when to run, you can train out. So I'm as enthusiastic about Johnny about like what potentially Calvin Ramsay can achieve for himself, for Scotland, and hopefully as player manager of Aberdeen by about the age of 28. But meantime, while he's on loan to you lot, at least you play in red. I think there's a massive re-education program going to take on, and it's a damn shame. I think Neil Critchley, having been away now, is he at QPR now? I think I'm reaching a little bit there, but it was largely Critchley who re-educated Trent Alexander when he was moving from midfield to full back. And for my taste, somebody's got to do that job again. And it was a job that was pending anyway. It would have had to happen if he'd stayed at Aberdeen or gone to Real Madrid. So there's a heap of work to be done in order to let the diamond quality shine.
I think Pep Linders is in place as the assistant manager. That, Jonathan, you might be able to say he's like, now this couple of weeks he's going to be spending with the youth team to look at who gets the promotion. You know, he does this every year. He's really well involved with the youth teams as well, and that's where his kind of
they told Aberdeen, which I think helped Aberdeen's negotiating purpose. They told Aberdeen that they wanted Calvin Ramsay straight into the first team squad.
Oh yeah. What I'm saying is you're asking for the person who will help do that. But what I'm saying is Pep is now part of the first team squad, first team coach. You know, he's the assistant manager, but he's got that experience of, you know, bringing those players.
Pep Linder's quality is good, but at the time when Trent was being tutored,
it was Neil.
It was Critchley one-on-one, and he didn't have those assistant manager duties.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I, in my opinion, there will be times where that one-on-one attention, if Pit Linders, given his level, can do it. Fair fucks. But
couple of things interest me here. I mean, Ramsay's he's a graduate of, there's an SFA performance school in Aberdeen. So the SFA kind of 10 years ago, in one of the periodic attempts to solve Scottish football, actually came up with a really good idea, which was performance centres across Scotland. And the Aberdeen one's been quite successful. Dean Campbell came through it as well, who still in the books, quite a decent prospect, played when he was 16. Calvin was on the bench.
Moved to Stevenage, right?
That's right. But I think he's on loan.
Yeah, that's right.
And Calvin Ramsay was similar, 16, was on the bench for Aberdeen. But what that tells me is, there isn't really an academy system in Scotland that's equivalent to England, because in terms of the levels of training that Graham's mentioning about, the one-on-one tuition and attention. So the SFA's idea was to almost create academies. If the clubs can't do it, we can sort of do it. So that tells me he is a lad that's actually had he should have had a lot of tactical tuition already. He should have had a lot of decent coaching for a Scottish player level already. And that would give him, I'd hope, the grounding to then take the next step that Graham rightly talks about, that, the work he will need to do to get up to speed. Because talking about Trent's deficiencies, I mean, I always think that they are overrated. They're not that bad. He has learnt a lot. He's nowhere near as bad at defending as people say. Calvin Ramsay's not, he's got a lot to learn to get to that level, let alone, go beyond that. But I just think that there's a lot there in the mix with him. And the thing that interests me as well, again, going back to something Graham said about how I think really good scouts and clubs look at what a young talent can do, what they've got that almost can't be trained, the thing that makes them special. And, Premier League clubs were looking at Calvin Ramsay after about 2 or 3 games in the first team for Aberdeen. And as Graham said, some like Liverpool, he was on the radar even longer. So when a player like this, who's got special qualities, comes to the fore and is playing first team football, that's another thing scouts really look at, or clubs look at, is who's playing first team football in their 17, 18, because that tells you something as well. It was amazing, the buzz that was around Ramsay at such an early point, and it is because of that thing that he's got attributes that are really, really special that can't necessarily be trained in, but you can train some of the deficiencies out, and that's the process I think Graham's talking about, and it'll go into at Liverpool.
Yeah, and he's young enough. He's only 18. We forget you're talking about him, with a lot of praise here, but he's got a long way to go, and he's going to get even better. But then that'll mean his defensively, he'll improve too. That understanding of where he's on the pitch and stuff. And if you look at all the players, like the stuff that Graham just said there in terms of being worried, literally, whenever we do this interview with specialists of a player that's coming from another club, they all say, "Will he play? Will he be okay? Will he be?" And literally, in this new era, so this Klopp era, all of them have gone on to become amazing. So if it was Robertson, or if it was whoever, they all went on to go and do something amazing. I think the great point from Graham was about Trent moving in field. Mm. If you do have that tactically, you can work on something that if he is overlapping, Trent's a right back anyway. Fill in nicely. This could become, and we might be a couple of years off from it, right? But this could become something completely unbelievable on the right side of Liverpool's team.
The other thing that strikes me is, he's replacing Nico Williams effectively. What a talent he was or is.
20 million we're getting. People are willing to pay 20 million for Nico at the moment.
He's an international class player, though. He's
going to the World Cup.
He's going to the World Cup, and he's been brilliant for Wales. So Liverpool believe in Calvin Ramsay so much that he's replacing a kid that's going to the World Cup and is probably already worth 20 million. And that says a lot about what he's got in his box.
I think there's a little. I don't want to attribute by any means all of this operation to Ross Richardson, but Ross was our head of scouting at Aberdeen for a number of years, left at the same time as Derek McInnes left, and was pretty immediately recruited by Liverpool as their lead scout for junior talent around the UK. And I would say Russ has had a word about Calvin's character, because obviously, while you're chief scout for Aberdeen, you don't live at the ground, you're almost over there. Still, he was talking to the academy, Gablivi, for example, what was needed. And at your club, his principal role is to ensure that elite young talents, principally in the UK, aren't missed. Now, Calvin obviously now doesn't count as a young talent in terms of that theme, because you really are looking like the green shoots. But I think I trust in the character that maybe it's dangerous, all of us, to be talking about Andy Robertson and Trent. But I think one of the things, for my taste, having met both of them, that links the two of them is the type of character your principal fullbacks have, in terms of industrial rubber, about if the risks I take and I've given my absolute to be back in position, or to be up and down, to take the kicks, to use up maybe more kilometres per match, per week, per month for another fullbacks, wingbacks. All that industrial rubber strength of mind and character and lungs and limbs that they've got. I think there's a reasonable projection that Ramsay's got the same. He's a strong, interesting character. Gags, you said you've been able to deduce that a little bit from his interviews. So even though we're talking about an 18-year-old I think the development process for him will be not sore, but I think he's in for a pretty brutal time of it to be fast-tracked, because as Johnny says, Liverpool know the amount of faith they've got. And Nico Williams is, to me, is a really, really gifted footballer. I love watching him. But there's a chutzpah, there's a character, there's an attitude in Calvin Ramsay that if he's going to make it to be an elite footballer with Liverpool, that will be something that needs to guide him, to inspire him, to take him through the difficult times, to take him through criticism. And I think he's got it, to be honest.
Yeah, and I've been watching, just obviously you don't get Aberdeen games. I don't watch them on TV. I'm sorry, I'll be honest. But all the clips that have been going on, on social media about Calvin Ramsay and all the best bits, and from just seeing those, and that's not very good scouting, I admit, but there's a confidence, there's a swagger in the way he plays. The touch, like you said, the pitches won't be great, and I didn't even focus on that bit, Jonathan. So it's a great shout, but literally the excitement from seeing him has me dreaming of what I said earlier about what we could do in a couple of years' time. And he has it all. The left foot, could he play left back as cover? I don't know. We got Simicast as well, but I'm just putting things out there because he just does look already. And if he's playing first team football and he's got, it didn't look out of place, didn't look like he was scared, no fear. That's the type of young player you want. You want him to go into that squad and go, I'm not afraid. In fact, you lot are so good. You're going to make me even better. So, I'm so excited to see. And everyone that I've spoke to in our Discord servers and our, community is all saying, I can't wait till, Trent gets a rest just to see what this kid does. And speaking to you both as well just makes me even more excited because, we got a bit of an inside story there in terms of we nicked a scout from you. Now we nicked your players as well. That's a bit harsh, really, Graham. I'm sorry about that as well. But
yeah, over the period of about 10, 15 years, we rebuilt Manchester United with Martin Buchan and Alex Ferguson and Gordon Strachan and Arthur Graham. So we got together. It was Johnny, it was myself, Dave Cormack, King Joey Harper. And we just said, as a committee, we said, let's their turn, man. We'll put them back on their fucking perch. Yeah.
Yes, we're on the way. We're on the way.
Best we can do for you, mate. Best we can do.
Look, we were 10 minutes away from being back on the perch this year. It was just 10 minutes of Stevie G holding on. What can we do? It was kind of all went Pete Tong a little bit. But hey, this is the fine margins of football, and don't we just love that? I mean, lots. Is he pacey? Because that's the one thing I couldn't tell. Is he? I didn't see any foot races in those highlights. Is he very pacey as well, Graham? Or
for my taste. In terms of an explosive sprint, he's okay. In terms of if you want to have a run with him, if you're trying to track him and he's
Yeah.
on the ball and you want to have a run over 10, 15, 20, 30 metres, I think he glides.
Yeah.
And what's more, Johnny used a phrase where he said he's got a decent physique for his age. We'll see his physique change. And I think that there will be, for example, one of the things that Luca Vialli did, he always told people around him, they did extra runs in training that's for the opposition. And he would just finish a player that wanted to live with him. And I think as he reaches maturity, and you've talked about excitement now, but a couple of times you've used a phrase about over the next 2 years. So please let's hope that that's what we're talking about. Because anybody who expects Calvin Ramsay to go in and dominate, 25 games in the Premier League in season one as a deputy for Trent I don't think is realistic. Unless there's something even more extraordinary than any of the development we've seen at Liverpool so far. So, but in context to that, I think that there will be times when by the end of a game, his opponent has been substituted, his opponent is left gasping, outright off the blocks, massively fast, Johnny. I'm not saying no, but I haven't seen it.
I don't think he's a sprinter as such. He's not slow, but he what I like about him actually, he times a run. He runs onto the ball. So he makes those bursts at the right moment, which means that sprint speed is one thing, but actually you need to know when to run. And he seems to have that natural idea of the attacking run, bursting onto the ball. Looks more like an 800-metre or 1,500-metre runner physique-wise.
Yeah,
run all day. And that energy side of being a fullback in the modern game shouldn't be a problem for him. So, he's fine. Trent's not the fastest player in the world either. So
he's pretty quick. When we look at the speed and stuff, we got Simon Brundish on the sports scientist. He says he's the back four. We got Konate now as well. Probably one of the fastest back fours in the world, to be honest.
Here's a question. Go on, Johnny.
No. I'm interested to hear that. Trent doesn't look like. If you said to me, is he rapid?
It's just that sometimes he's playing against some of the fastest players in the world. Yeah. That's all. It's harder that the wingers are the fastest players on the pitch, so they do look like they're rapid. But sorry.
I think when we talk again, because obviously there's no point in either Johnny or I saying there's a map of the next 18 months because we still have to learn. What will be interesting to me is if you aggregate what Jay and I have been saying, it's really clear one of the things that have attracted Liverpool is that he uses the ball well. Yeah. And even if he plays, how often will he be asked to take the corners of the free kicks into the box? Don't know. Delivery from free play, if he's the right back because Trent's been rested or it's a League Cup game or whatever, fine. That's down to him, and his use of the ball on the run is generally good, and certainly can become elite. But there's a queue of really good users of the ball that maybe Trent is at the top of the queue of, but there are people after him that somebody in the coach's office is going to say, it's Calvin, or Calvin's going to have to prove himself in training in order to be given set plays. But another thing I hope to see is that we have had an awful lot of players, particularly in the first half of the season, because a young lad called Connor Barron came into the team in the second half of the season. There were a lot of players who kind of didn't really want the ball. Now, that's the lowest of the low, because you can talk about players who can't control a ball, but when you don't want the ball. And we had principally one striker. And therefore, if you're somebody like Ramsay on the right wing and you're looking to distribute, either the ball into him is more difficult because for him, one guy to find space is more difficult. A channel run, everything has to be inch perfect about it because, it's one striker. When he's training or in friendly matches to begin the season or whenever he debuts, to find 10 players, keeper included, you're like, fucking give me the ball. Yeah, I'm happy with the ball. Give me the ball now. Give me this distance, that distance, give me it into that space when they teach him. For him to have that release is like opening a gate to paradise for him. Doesn't mean, neither of us is talking about these fucking bad jokes. But the change for him to have players around him who are like, I want it all the time. I'll show you where I want it, when I want it. I'll make the right run for it. That's going to be a liberation. And that's when I'd like to see an exponential growth in him and his confidence, his ability to use the ball, and his worth in the team too.
We might be playing with Mo Salah on the right. So, I mean, that's the... How many runs do you want, lads?
But it's true. But I mean, across the team, you admitted, and I don't blame you, that you haven't been watching Aberdeen. The number of players who are like making the right move, even into an open space for him, between men, or like giving goals, that isn't a natural. That hasn't been his natural habitat over the last 12 months. I'm sad to say. It's going to be a complete revelation across the team, not just Mo Salah.
Yeah. One point before we go to Jonathan, just to say, you're talking whether he would take the set pieces. Now, if he proves it in training, Kostas Tsimikas came in to replace Robertson, takes everything on the left side now, all the time. If Robertson's not there, Kostas takes them and has got decent amount of assists from his corners and his free kicks. He's got a great left foot. So if Calvin does the same in training and proves it, literally there will be no questions asked, because they know that the fullback's role is this. We want the wide. There won't be no Thiago or Hendo or someone taking over. Klopp says it's this guys, it's that guys. This is what we're doing.
He's got a different delivery as well. He actually offers an alternative. He's got a lovely floated delivery, which is quite hard to pull off as accurately as he does, but it's not the whipped one. So it's another in terms of different game situations, often different challenges to a defense. He can strike a ball slightly differently to other people. But I wanted to mention one person in his development here, or the pathway, and that's Joe Gomez, because it also strikes me that when Gomez has played at right back, he's been pretty good. And of course, he gives you somebody that's rapid, and he gives you somebody that can really defend. Yeah. So if Trent is being rested, or let's say Trent gets injured, I don't actually think there's that much pressure on Calvin Ramsay at the moment, because in those more difficult games, or those games where you're worried specifically about a winger, you can put Joe Gomez in, and he can be used in those games where Klopp and Pep Linders feel that he can. Yeah, for sure. Without being exposed. So that's another thing I like about the pathway for him.
Yeah, I'm hopeful this is the season, because there's rumours that Joe Gomez is going to sign a new contract. And if that's the case, he's been assured that left-sided defence position. I mean, he likes to play next to Van Dijk, but that looks like it's Konate and Matip now. I think that left-side position, Van Dijk probably needs a little bit more rest this season than last year, coming back from his injury. We probably want to protect his knees, this season. So I think Joe's going to get quite a few games, which is good for him, good for England as well. But maybe we go there in a minute to England, because it was amazing getting your insights on Calvin, both of you. I think we're probably going to get Graham to kill England and Southgate off in a minute. But you made a really interesting point in the article that Paul Joyce. Everybody got the wrong end of the stick. I backed you on this, Jonathan. I did say to everyone in our community and Discord server, no, that's a quote from Paul Joyce, because they work together, lads. He's not going to be shouting at Jonathan. That's just silly. He's quoting him. So what was that quote? What was the point you were making about Trent? Because we're talking about right backs anyway, so we might as well carry on.
It's a funny one. I was speaking to Joyce about it. He simply didn't have enough space to put in quote marks, which is why everyone thought that it was a roast. But no, my point is, the general theme of the article was to say that I think there's a level that England haven't tried to tap into, and it's a level that involves taking more risk and playing more football and being on the front foot more. And they're not going to do that now before the World Cup. I think the experiment phase has been badly used, and we're going to go back to seeing the old England at the World Cup, which might do okay, but I think there's an untapped resource. And to me, the biggest symbol of that is Trent. You've got one of the most creative players in world football who offers something I think any other country would put on the pitch and try and use. And Gareth Southgate has looked at him, and on the basis, I think, of just what he sees with his eye rather than any evidence, thought, I can't trust this player defensively, and just hasn't tried to see if this works on the pitch. Has treated Trent, I think, very strangely over the last 2 or 3 years. And the point I was making specifically to him was in this last phase of games where Gareth said he was going to use these to try things ahead of the World Cup. What's he do with Trent Alexander-Arnold? He plays him at wing back in Hungary, and then he goes to 4-3-3 against Germany and keeps him on the bench, and then sends him on holiday, and then is going to say to us, "Oh well, I don't think he's sound enough defensively at right back." He doesn't know. Trent's never even lost a game for England playing at right back. So it just seemed to me.
What, is that real? Is that a true?
He's never lost at right back. He's lost 2 games playing for England, both at right wing back. So in his natural position, I don't think there is any evidence that he's this massive liability for England, because it hasn't been worked on the pitch. And I think Southgate's got I think he's done overall a job that you really have to respect the results he's achieved. And I think he might do quite well at the World Cup, playing in his old defensive, sort of slightly cautious way. But I do think there's a level he hasn't tried football-wise, and Trent is a. And if you put him on the pitch in a 4-3-3 and it didn't work, I'd say fine, you've kind of proved the point. But he hasn't. It's almost as if he's. I don't want to use the phrase "set up to fail," but I don't think he's committed to really trying to see what he can get out of Trent on the pitch, and I don't really know why.
I mean, Graham, we'll pump this up to you. I don't think it's just Trent. I think it's the whole squad. I don't think he's got a generation of very supremely talented footballers here, and I don't think he's playing them to what the capacity or capability that they should be at.
Well, I need to be careful, because you follow the national team and Johnny reports with them. But if I could go to things that, first of all, if I'd wanted to write a script about Trent and England, John's just read it out. So point full stop. Nothing to try and add there. But there, aside from the strategy, the system, and Gareth Southgate's strengths and weaknesses, if England, all we're really arguing now is, can England win a tournament? This tournament,
yeah.
It's been semi-final, final, and this is a tournament whereby, if any of us who's been to Qatar know that it's like playing a World Cup in London, but with a motorcade to quiz you across the ridiculous traffic in Qatar. So England are playing at the time of the season that suits them best. They'll be playing in relatively temperate weather that will suit them well. They're going to be. They will never, probably in their lives, not this group in their lives, will never again. Drama and disaster though it is that Qatar got the World Cup the way they have, and they built the stadiums the way they have. Disgusting. But while we're talking about football, that tournament's going ahead. What will happen is that they will be, by the time they leave a stadium after the game, they will be at their training camp in 30 minutes max. Not up in the air, not having to wear compression socks, not getting to bed at 6 in the morning, training at 10 again. They're optimum conditions. Now, that fits for other sides too. But we're only focusing on England and the way in which they need to perform better in several ways in order to win a tournament, given how close they've gone last couple. And in that, there's 2 things obsessing me. I'm not saying they're the 2 only things, but it's patently clear that Everton's keeper Pickford isn't good enough. You'll never win a tournament with any goals. Point full stop. It's lovely, the drama. Sometimes he makes a double save. Sometimes he flings himself over. He isn't good enough. We can fanny about and discuss it all the way on. He isn't good enough to win a tournament. It's as simple as that. So finally, there's a change of goalkeeper, and is it Ramsdale? He's got the Hungary game at home. It's going to be difficult for his those who reject him to get rid of it. It's going to be difficult for Southgate. He's quite a conservative man to go out. Well, I'm sticking with him, but it isn't Pickford. Let me promise you that. And the other key, far more important, is England don't score enough goals, and Harry Kane's exceptional. So one, the fuck was he doing playing? And if this was an experimental year at the end of a brutal season, get out there, nail it, tell everybody, yeah, we want to qualify. Yeah, it's a difficult group now. Harry Kane's on holiday. Thank you very much. And when it comes to November, you can thank me or sack me then. Harry Kane's on holiday. If not, if he's got to keep on playing, the idea about England being pegged back or having to chase the ball with Germany away or Italy at home, I thought Italy and England both played quite nice football first half. But like, Kane gets isolated. Kane gets asked to do running that he doesn't have to do at Spurs. And there are two things that stand out to me. And maybe some of the things guys have tried to do across these Nations League games were in his head. Find him a son. Find him somehow, somebody who can mimic the characteristics of son. Just fucking do that. If you can't do that, the chances of England scoring enough key goals because of Kane's brilliance, which is inarguable that he has a brilliance, he has to play at 10 in a 4-2-3-1. He has to play in the middle of 2 in the line of 3, play as a 10 with a centre forward. He'll do all the running, all the sprints, worry the centre defenders, create spaces for Kane to come into. And until England make that absolute choice, if there's our partnership with Kane and Son, and we'll play the formation that best suits that. And if that can't be done, he has to play in a position whereby, if he did decide to drop a little bit deeper in order to influence the play, because he's a very clever playmaker, then there has to be a 9 that's either the out ball or that's spreading the game and stopping the opponents wandering forward 25 metres. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why the England setup hasn't identified those two things. So, best of luck come Qatar, but there, a chance, a genuine opportunity for England to win this, depending on the form of other key players and Calvin Phillips being fit, or your man Declan being on top form, or whether you want to play an expansive player, or whether Grealish has got all these little things get sorted out as you come up to a tournament. Somebody breaks the net tackle, blah blah blah, all that shit. Keeper and Kane. That's it. They have to be sorted. Otherwise, England don't lift the trophy. Probably don't reach the final.
I agree. I don't think it's going to happen either, because I think he's stubborn. But you know what? That was brilliant. Anything to add to that, Jonathan? Are you happy?
No, I might borrow some of that though. He's been
Shut up, you liar.
I might remove some of the 4-letter words.
Expletives, yeah, brilliant. No, but that's what we love, is there's no holding back.
Sorry, lads.
No,
at least you both know it's the real me.
It is the real you, always is. And I just want to say a massive thank you to you both for giving me this hour. I'm honestly honoured to be in the same show with you both. Love your work. You know that. You both know that. And we hope Calvin Ramsay is a superstar of the future, and we will bring you back when he lifts that first trophy, or actually when he gets that, that breakout in the team and starts to produce. And I've no doubt, from what you guys have said, I've no doubt that's going to happen at this club. And he's got the right people.
Lots of love and support from us. That he enjoys himself and that he thrives. Thrilled for him. So proud of him. Like Johnny said at the beginning, so proud of him. So thrilled for him. Lots and lots of support. Give him a little bit of room to develop, and then watch him go.
Superb. Thank you so much once again for joining me on here. I'm sure that the listeners are going to love it. And for you listeners, if you haven't joined our Discord, you must do AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. Go there. Go to GrahamHunter.tv. Go and listen to the big interview, and get signed up to the time so you can.
I thought you were going to say, I'm sure you've loved it, but if you haven't loved it, I honestly.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I was going to say that's the best sign-off line I've ever heard.
And if you haven't enjoyed it, you can find them both on here on Twitter.
Yeah, good. Tell them.
No, I love you both. Thank you so much. And guys, we'll listen to you back soon.
That's been a pleasure.
Nice.
See you, fellas. Up and down.
See you, boys.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.